off by the HMRC. He can't say it.
But Dave, he's created this because initially it was going to be for his security for the rest of his life. Then it was a gift for the campaigning that he did to deliver Brexit. If the man changes the story, don't be surprised that journalists get interested. That's what we're going to have to do.
No. He's been very clear, and I've listened to him. He's been very clear. It's an unconditional gift.
Well, he said he could buy a fleet of Ferraris with it. He's told me he could buy a fleet of Ferraris if he wanted to.
But he can. It's an unconditional gift. That's the whole point. He's been deliberately obtuse because there are HMRC rules around it.
Well,
if you read the HMR website, you'll be very, very clear as to why he can't answer any line of question that you're asking him.
You think that's why?
Maybe there's a better way of asking it.
Maybe. Like what? Like what?
Well, I mean, maybe be slightly more clever, not to mean in a negative way.
No, that's
but
fine.
maybe go more at an angle and just say, well, you need security. How are you going to fund that? Is that why you're getting, or how you're going to use part of these funds?
Okay, I mean, I think he's kind of said that for the rest of his life he's going to need that, which is true. I've been on the street with him and he's had the most extraordinary abuse hurled at him. It's not particularly something that I would particularly want to endure on a daily basis. Dave, thank you. We'll continue with that conversation. We will come back. We'll have a review, actually. We're going to have the top... We are? Thank you. OK, top 3 or top 5, whatever it might be, of what you think should be at the top of the Burnham Brief after this. 9:46, LBC News. Headlines then, Dominic Ellis.
A rare red warning for extreme heat has come into force across southern England and Wales. The largest maternity investigation in the history of the NHS will publish its findings later. And polling seen exclusively by LBC suggests 39% of voters think Andy Burnham shouldn't become Prime Minister without a formal contest. LBC weather, warm and sunny for most, very hot in southern England and Wales, cloudy with drizzle in the northwest, a high of 39 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. Most train companies are running a reduced service across their networks because of the hot weather, and there'll be no Gatwick Express services running after 1 o'clock this afternoon. Also on the train, still no services between Luton and Bedford. On the underground, there's no service on the Bakerloo line between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, and severe delays on the Circle line. On the M25, on the Surrey stretch, there are delays clockwise to junction 10 at the A3. That's where a lorry has broken down. In central London, very busy over Waterloo Bridge, northbound because the Strand underpass is closed northbound. And in South Croydon, the Brighton Road remains closed both ways following an accident which is causing delays.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, James O'Brien.
An academic summit on extreme heat has just been cancelled because of extreme heat. Are we paying enough attention to what's going on?
James O'Brien at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Relaxing was that yoga session. I feel so free.
Speak for yourself. Don't ever let go. Bladder leaks.
I know, right? I'm so done compromising. I got a new bit of yoga kit. Always discreet pads. Here, try for yourself next week.
Love you lots. This thin pad won't keep up with my heavy leaks.
Just trust me on this one.
When possible.
So, all zen and liberated, are we?
Let's just say I found my flow.
Always discreet. Live with no compromise.
This is LBC. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. Download it now from your app store.
Feel that? That little buzz of excitement? That's the weekly flutter. With chances to win up to £10,000, enter British Heart Foundation's lottery for a thrill with goodwill behind it. Because when you play, it helps fund life-saving research. So go on, keep playing, keep winning, keep us beating. Search BHF Lottery. Gamble responsibly. Over 18s only. T's and C's apply. Please see our website for more details. British Heart Foundation is a registered charity.
At Lidl, we believe everybody deserves great deals on quality fresh fruit and veg. That's why we have Pick of the Week. Get up to 30% off 6 delicious fruit and veg items each week, with 3 of them on offer with Lidl Plus. Scan your app to save. Lidl, more to value. 18 plus GB only. T's and C's apply. See lidl.co.uk/FBTV while stocks last.
In a world full of noise and uncertainty, IG is the investment platform that backs you. Forget the dubious tips from that guy down the pub. Get real-time insights, analysis and tools.
Turn right.
No more fat cat brokers clawing your gains. Pay zero commission on your investments. Switch to a platform trusted by British investors for over 50 years. IG. Trade, invest, progress. Your capital's at risk. Other fees may apply.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinapickle.co.uk.
This summer, the world-famous massed bands of His Majesty's Royal Marines return to Horse Guards Parade, London. Feel the power of over 200 Royal Marines musicians with the Royal Navy Ceremonial Guard of Honour. Live on Thursday the 16th and Friday the 17th of July. Tickets are on sale now from just £17 plus a £2.25 booking fee. Book today at tickets.rnrmc.org.uk.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Just closed down as far as we go. I'm sure my colleagues will take it on the conversation about schools and schools closing down. A lot of emails came in on that, and then I'm going to give you what's top of the Burnham brief. Brenda says, my son attends a special needs college during a performing arts course. Yesterday I got a call at 2 p.m. The school was finishing early. I was thankfully nearby, but it's the last minute notification that annoys me. I think it annoys a lot of parents. Kate in Hampstead, my daughter is a year 6 teacher, so that's children aged around 10. Classroom is already over 30 degrees, no aircon. Children were given the option of being picked up at 1 p.m. yesterday, and today most were, but she had to stay with a handful who couldn't be collected. She knows parents have to work, and her school gave the parents a choice. Given the extreme heat, air conditioning will be a must if this carries on in the future. And Margaret Clark says, with regards to closing schools because of the heat and concern over teachers, their health and safety, I wonder where they go on their summer holidays. That's where they go abroad. Sun and heat. They do, but of course they're not teaching a classroom with children who algebra, who perhaps have no interest whatsoever in a baking hot. So that's perhaps the difference where they choose to go on their holidays. But we're going to try and make Andy handy, and I asked what you would want as top of the Burnham brief. And let's give you the top 6, starting in ascending order. Immigration came in, greater control of it. Now here's an interesting one at number 5, creation of a wealth tax. That, to me, makes no sense whatever, but that's what you're saying, so I must reflect it. Tackling the problem of youth unemployment is the top, for the top fourth highest priority. Here we go to the top 3. Spend more in social care, get the bronze medal there. Defence comes in with the silver medal. So what are most of you saying is the number 1 to-do list to make Andy, start drilling in the North Sea? That's your number 1 priority. If he does do that, it's unlikely that Ed Miliband, but of course our biggest chance of it was I would imagine there would be at loggerheads over that. But let's talk more about the Burnham brief. Lucy's in Muswell Hill. What would you put in, Lucy, and why? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Firstly, congratulations on your award.
That's so kind of you. Thank you very much indeed, Lucy. Well, thank you for voting. Whoever voted for me, marvellous. Thank you. Clearly need medical treatment.
And well deserved. Andy's brief would be for him to stop giving the money to France to supposedly stop the boats, which isn't really happening.
Around £500 million to date we've sent over to France.
So I would stop giving that money to them, and the police would stop waving people over.
Yep.
And I think that money ought to immediately be diverted to the defence budget.
A lot of people agree with the defence. I'm just reminding, I think it came in, yes, it was in second place.
Yes.
Are you encouraged by what would appear to be Andy Burnham being the Prime Minister?
Not really. I think the last time I spoke to you, I didn't really want him to win the election.
Oh, right. Oh, dear. So it's not going your way at all, is it?
Not really, but then, sort of, well, you never know. We might have positives out of it, so that's got to be good. If people are positive, then that's got to be better, hasn't it?
Yes, isn't it? Yeah, well, I think Sir Keir Starmer will go a man who did his best, but he didn't actually really have that much of an idea of where he wanted to take the country. Lucy, thank you. Also, thank you for your kind words as well. Let's stay with the Burnham brief, and we go to Richmond and Stephen. Good morning, Steve. Are you by the river in Richmond today? How lovely if you are.
I wish I was. No, I wish I wasn't. I'm stuck in the office.
How are you? Go on.
Nick, may I first say congratulations on your work.
Slow down.
I've listened to you for so long, and it's a breath of fresh air.
Well, they're furious in performance there, but there we are. We beat them, so
and as for the knockout you done with Mr. Farage earlier on, that just shows how fantastic an interview.
Well, I don't know. Well, OK, good. We perhaps needed to answer the question. What do we need to see from the Prime Minister, would you say, Stephen?
Well, I think we need to think out of the box. If he's going to do the same old, this, that, and that's fine. I think he should introduce a tax that's not going to upset us. Now you think to yourself, oh my goodness.
Yeah, where are you going to find one of those?
Well, I drive a lot over to Bulgaria.
Right. Is that for business or pleasure?
A bit both, yeah. A bit both, yeah. And whenever I go to any country, I've got to pay a vignette, or I've got to pay a toll. Or if you try to go to Austria, for instance, and see how far you can get past the camera before the police pull you over and give you €150 fine.
Right.
Everywhere you go through Europe, you've got to pay a toll. Now, everybody comes over to the UK and they pay nothing except the M6 toll, of course. I believe a tax can be revenue. And it's a tax. It's not going to burden us. It's going to help the roads. It's going to help transportation. You could even sort of angle it. It's going to help immigration in a small sort of way. I don't know. So, it ticks all these boxes and it's not affecting us. And it'll bring in millions. Now,
do we know how much a country like Austria gets per annum from its road tolls?
Well, every single person who goes through it in their car has got to pay €35. If you're caught, even going through it, you get €150 fine plus the 35. You go to the car off. You go to Slovenia before you even get into the country to slither through the small part of it, then you've got to pay €50. You go through the French motorways, as you know, the toll roads. You go through Germany, the toll roads. You go through all of it. We get tolled everywhere, and we get all the heavy goods vehicles and other vehicles coming over, which are quite clearly causing damage. You just have to drive out over it. Look at the state of the roads. And that's not done by people going on the bicycles. That's done by heavy goods vehicles that are coming in that we're not taxing. Now, I think it's only fair that we should pay a vignette. Well, in this country, they should be taxed. They should be checked, they should have tax. They should have it before they get on the boat. That is a revenue that people will be happy about. It's not going to take it in these pockets, it's going to go back into transport.
Last question. Some would say, what about the cost of building all those toll booths? That will not come cheap. You will obviously argue, well, it soon pay for itself, I imagine.
Well, we've got one on the M6 toll, but I think you could have a vignette before they arrive in the country. Every vehicle's got to have a vignette for 7 days. What you do in any of these other countries, you've got to buy that vignette. You go to Bulgaria, you've got to have that vignette. So you should have a vignette. You get that before. There's no toll bought there. You get it before you get on the underground, on the ferry, before you get onto the channel. You have got to have that. You get checked on the side. If you don't, you get fined.
All right. Stephen, it's an idea thing, and as you said, quite rightly, sir, it is thinking outside the box, it's giving it a different idea, and as you again rightly say, some of those trucks that come through from overseas, they leave the potholes for the rest of us to contend with. Stephen, have a safe day in Richmond, thank you. Last word for today, probably be on the Farage interview. Deanne in Chorleywood, the point you want to make. Deanne, good morning.
Good morning, just had our congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Myself, long-term listeners.
Oh, that's very kind of you, thank you.
To be brief,
Yes.
I suggest that Nigel Farage should ask the guy who donated this money to him to publicly state a gift, no strings attached, end of saga.
When he says it's none of your business, how would you respond to that? Why is it your business, would you say to Mr. Farage?
I don't inquire about people's personal finance, no.
But if we are in a position of what could be public trust, it's nice to know where £5 million went.
Not if it was an unconditional gift.
That comes back to the donors, what you said. Thank you, Deanne. Let's find out the man who actually gave the cash. Actually, finishing with you, Deanne. Thank you. Have yourself a good day. One last call on the Burnham Brief. What should be at the top and why? Leicester in Brighton. The last caller on this. Leicester, go ahead. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Nick.
Hello, sir.
I'd like to say I'm a very socialist-minded person.
Yes.
I believe in treating everybody equally.
Right.
With this, obviously, I've never voted Labour in my life.
Oh, right.
Because from a working-class family, run businesses.
Right.
So I would say, why don't we, be like Spain, have one pension that suits state workers in the private sector. And
what about someone who's perhaps done rather well and has earned more money and wants to be better provided for in later life? What would happen to him or her?
Well, the system could be rigged so that the more you earn, the more you contribute.
Right.
But, why should the state pension not be good enough for state workers?
That, of course, comes into the triple lot and the pressure that's going to be applied there. Lester, you got your point across, albeit briefly. Thank you for your input. We're done. But Lester, again, we're done for another day. James O'Brien is waiting the other side of the news. If you missed the show, listen back on the free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinions. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Another and final thank you very much for those who voted and meant a huge amount to get that award. Thank you for your support on that. James is the other side of the news on LBC. I'm with you tomorrow morning from 7. Meantime, stay safe.
Thank you, Nick, and let me add my small voice of congratulation. I mean, we are going to have to talk about the weather in some way, shape or form. I don't know if this is a figure of speech yet, but it should be. I personally, before I got into the air-conditioned studio, was sweating like a politician pretending that a secret £5 million gift from a Thailand-based billionaire is nothing to do with voters or the electorate or indeed the people that you supposedly work for. And as if by magic, as I was preparing to come on air, a little story dropped from a research group at the London School of Economics who have cancelled their summit on extreme heat because of extreme heat. It's not funny, is it?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, a rare Met Office red warning for extreme heat, meaning a danger to life, has come into force in southern England and Wales. Hundreds of schools are closing and rail passengers are being told to travel only if necessary. Temperatures could reach close to 40 degrees Celsius today. Climate spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats, Pippa Hayling, has told LBC the government needs to open up cool hubs in public spaces.
We've got a country and buildings that were just not built for the kind of climate shocks that we're seeing now. And particularly we've got vulnerable people in housing and sheltered housing who have just got no way to get any kind of ventilation or air coming into their homes. And so what we're saying is that public spaces that have got air conditioning, that have got ventilation, should be opening these spaces.
The rare Met Office red warning is in force until tomorrow night. Findings from the largest maternity investigation in the history of the NHS are due to be published later this morning. Hundreds of families say their babies died or were harmed because of poor maternity care. The review examined around 2,500 cases at Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust. Polling seen exclusively by LBC suggests 4 in 10 voters think Andy Burnham shouldn't become Prime Minister without a formal contest. The data was compiled by Ipsos shortly before Sir Keir Starmer resigned as Labour leader on Monday. It says the senior MP Darren Jones has shut down speculation today that he'll challenge Mr Burnham for the party's leadership. He confirmed he won't be standing in any race.
Andy Burnham is going to be the next Prime Minister, and if there was a contest of Labour Party members, he would win. So the question for me is, what would the benefit be to the country and to the party of a leadership contest?
People who refuse to pay back benefit debt could soon be banned from driving as part of government plans to try to save almost £15 billion over the next 5 years from welfare fraud and error. And the England manager Thomas Tuchel has admitted his side weren't clinical enough in their goalless draw with Ghana at the World Cup last night. A win would have secured progress to the knockout stages for the Three Lions with a game to spare. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 3 at 10,425. The pound buys $1.31 and €1.16. LBC weather, warm and sunny for most, very hot in southern England and Wales. Cloudy, though, with some drizzle in the northwest. A high today of 39 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Dominic Hans.
When you go abroad, everyone knows the best way to make yourself understood is to just say everything in English, but louder.
4 beers, please, garçon!
If only there was a way that could work with your advertising campaign. Well, there is, and you're listening to it. Because when you amplify your advertising with radio, 40 million listeners every week get the message. See radio differently at radiocentre.org.
Is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
It's 3 minutes after 10 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I don't know how it performs in the sort of relatively frequent roundups of the finest comedy moments of all time. It depends partly on your age, doesn't it? But I suspect that Del Boy falling through the bar while Trigger stood next to him holding a pint is going to come near the top. More recently, I think that Mitchell and Webb sketch, when they are dressed as Nazis, and I think it's David Mitchell who utters the immortal line, "Are we the baddies?" That's brilliant. That's not slapstick, of course, in the way that the Only Fools and Horses clip is, but that sort of speaks to an eternal truth that hang on a minute, are we the baddies? And it just occurred to me now, literally, when I sat down, that the two things I'm thinking about talking about today, in some ways, feature the same baddies. I'm looking at the weather. I'm looking at the fact that a summit, an academic summit at my alma mater, the London School of Economics, has just been cancelled. It was scheduled to host a kind of academic meeting on extreme heat today, and it has been cancelled, wait for it, because of extreme heat. I don't know what word to use to describe that. The best I came up with was portentous, which is a great word, isn't it? Portentous. It feels portentous. It feels like an omen. It feels like an application for inclusion in a history book of the future, if we make it to the future. Even when an event on extreme heat, improving governance and strengthening action around the world, was cancelled because of the red weather. What is it again, Keith? The red weather warning. Rare red weather warning. Because of the rare red weather warning. And still people didn't take notice, or still people underreacted to the gravity of the situation. An extreme heat academic conference cancelled at the London School of Economics, taking place in the Shaw Library, actually, a room I know well, where I would spend many happy hours not doing anything, really, or reading books that had nothing to do with my course. It was a beautiful building, the Shaw Library. 5th floor, if I remember rightly. Didn't really go up there much, but and a lot of students could spend their entire time at the London School of Economics without ever knowing about the Shaw Library. It was for swats and wasters. Swats and wasters. The swats would be there because it was a nice place to work on actual academic things, and the wasters were there because it had sofas in it. You could sort of sprawl on a sofa like a 19th century maiden and read an improving novel, or, in my case, probably Martin Amis during that period of my life. But that's been cancelled. You could call it ironic, or you could focus on a different word instead, as I tried to do earlier. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about today was Brexit, because I can't believe that no one's celebrating still. Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the vote, and today is the 10th anniversary of the glorious victory, the magnificent triumph, the absolutely historic moment of celebration. So where are the party poppers? Where are the street parades? Where's the ticker tape? Where's the celebration? There's not even a balloon. I came to work that morning knowing that it was going to be a disaster, but as I explained to you yesterday, really looking forward to talking about it, because that's my job and I love it. But there were other people who were cock-a-hoop, over the moon, absolutely delighted. Where are they now? And why aren't they celebrating is a probably rhetorical question. But I was minded to put together a little contest for us to play together. Sprawling like a Jacob Rees-Mogg in the House of Commons, says Dan and Tricia and a few other people. Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking of playing it, not a game necessarily, but just looking at what the single biggest factor was in that vote that turned us into the first population in history to actually elect to impose economic sanctions on ourselves. Was it a person, an institution? As in a factor, not a thing, like people didn't understand immigration or freedom of movement. Not that, but the things, the actual engines that were either human beings or driven by human beings. And it occurred to me the answer would probably be the same, and it's the media. And that's where the Nazis come in. That's where David Mitchell and Robert Webb, doing that brilliant sketch where they're sort of surveying the military scenario during the Second World War, and hang on a minute, are we the baddies? Because everywhere I look now, there are columnists and editorials and op-eds moaning the state of the country, from the left and from the right. I speak as the bloke who wrote How They Broke Britain, and you know, I stand by that thesis, although obviously the guilty men are easy to identify and trip off the tongue quite winningly. You've got David Cameron, you've got Boris Johnson, you've got Dominic Cummings, you've got Rupert Murdoch, you've got Paul Dacre, you've got Andrew Neil, you've got Jeremy Corbyn, of course, played a bit. So, I mean, who broke Britain is a very easy game to play, unless you're a member of the media, in which case you have to pretend there's something else going on. Oh, it's because we're not drilling for oil in the North Sea, or it's because we're teaching children too much about slavery or the empire. In some ways, I wonder whether woke grew up, became a thing as a direct consequence of the people responsible for the state of the country being utterly unable, not just to admit, but even to acknowledge that they are utterly responsible for the state of the country. Are we the baddies? Is the answer to the question of what was the single biggest driving force that led the country off a cliff 10 years ago, is it the media? I think it probably is. An epic and unforgivable failure of journalism. Which brings us to the heat, which brings us to the extreme heat. And just the thought that occurred to me as I sat down, which is always a worry, isn't it? Because, you know, sometimes I find myself hitting 10 past 10 and thinking, maybe I should have thought this through before I started sharing it with you live and completely off the cuff. But it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? What would it take for us to be terrorised by extreme heat? Because the answer, I put it to you cautiously, tentatively, is not extreme heat. I feel we should have had a sound effect there, Keith. A kind of dun, dun, dun. What would it take for us all to be suitably terrorised? And I think I prefer the word terrorised to the word terrified in this context, by extreme heat. Because it's not extreme heat, is it? I mean, you know, don't think less of me, but the temptation this morning to do a phone-in on what's your favourite lolly, or whether or not a Magnum is a lolly. Of course it isn't. It's a chalk ice on a stick. It's not a lolly. Lollies are fruity, not creamy. Everybody knows that, but they persist in putting Magnums at the top of these particular charts. The best lolly is a Fab. Everybody knows that as well, or possibly a Rocket, although they're very hard to get hold of these days. I don't think even Enzo in the car park at the garden centre in Isleworth has got Rockets. He's definitely got Fabs though. It's not extreme heat. So I wasn't going to do it lightly. I mean, having a conversation about why schools are closing and public transport can't cope is a bit like having a conversation about why Greenland is better at coping with extreme cold than we are. I mean, we are not a country that was built to deal with this sort of weather. We don't. I think the best way to prove that, if you really think it's a conversation worth having, is to point out that we generally don't have siestas. Unless you are a mid-morning radio talk show host, you probably don't have a siesta every day. I'm very tired when I clock off. Don't look at me like that. It's exhausting, this job. And I know what you think. You should try listening to it, James. It's absolutely exhausting. So that's your point, right? Oh, maybe a mini milk is a lolly, actually, Phil. You raise a decent point. It's not creamy, though. It's milky. Extreme heat is not the answer to the question of what it would take for us to recognise that extreme heat is terrorising, terrifying, hugely important. And the temptation to talk about light-hearted stuff is almost irresistible. The temptation yesterday to talk about who's got the worst job, just a thought for my friend Scott, who is currently working on an industrial heat-pressing machine in a room with absolutely no ventilation or air conditioning, almost the polar opposite of the environment that I find myself in this morning. And then I had another listener, so someone else got in touch this morning to tell me that they were working in a laboratory with, I think, sewage, like doing samples. I'll find you the text, actually. I don't want to misrepresent the reality being described, but that is really irresponsible of me. You know what my job is. I tell you every day. My job is to make things interesting for you. Sometimes I don't have to because they're obviously and immediately interesting as well. And sometimes I have to work quite hard to make things interesting for you. But the problem with this particular subject is that it is absolutely important. It is the single most important issue facing our species, facing our planet. and we do not take it seriously enough. And I'm just a radio host. If the entire population of the planet is not taking it seriously enough, and don't at me, I know some people are, and I know that it depends partly on where in the world you are, but if we as a species are in a plurality, in a majority, proportionately not taking it anywhere near seriously enough, then I can't make it interesting to you. Or at least if I can make it interesting to you, it's not going to touch the sides of where this story would need to be otherwise. Some moments feel significant. The floods in Valencia felt significant. I was just reading Ursula von der Leyen this morning, detailing, I think, the €1 billion of aid that has been sent in that direction by the European Union. This thing today, the London School of Economics cancelling a summit, an academic summit on extreme heat because of extreme heat. These are real moments. These are important things. But it doesn't land in the way that it should. And I don't know that it ever will. You know what I generally reach for at this point in my pontifications? I generally reach for that Leonardo DiCaprio film from a few years ago called Don't Look Up, which was a masterpiece of allegory, an absolute masterpiece of allegory, because we don't look up. It's a bit like Brexit, only a little bit. If you were celebrating Brexit 10 years ago, you won't be celebrating it today, and you'd rather that we never talked about it. You don't like to be reminded of how gullible or how stupid or how atavistic you were. To which I'm afraid that the answer is tough. You are the baddies, but we'll move on to that in the next hour. With this, it's as if it's too epic to contemplate, so we won't. We'll just have a little bit of a moan about how hot it was on the Piccadilly line this morning and how the people whose suitcases clog up the corridors are even more annoying on a day like today than they are the rest of the year. We'll have a little chat about our favourite lollies. I could tell you now, we would all be up for that. I'm not patronising you. I would rather talk about favourite lollies. What's your favourite lolly? Does anyone remember Good Golly Miss Lolly, which was a feature on this programme? Only came along in the very, very hot weather when it would replace Beat the Sweet, one of my favourite features on this programme, back when my childishness was allowed to run rampant over the airwaves, as opposed to today when it just sort of peaks out occasionally. I don't know why we don't care enough, but I also don't know why I don't care enough. And I don't know, I fear that the answer to the question I'm asking is not an event. What would it take for us to be more terrorised by extreme heat? What would it take to be more terrorised by extreme heat? Because the answer is not extreme heat. It's another little story for you today that I think speaks to my conviction that the media is almost entirely to blame for what's going on, because the media, like some politicians, is bought and paid for. Of course, you know, politicians who are bought and paid for think it's none of your business that they're bought and paid for, but the media is also bought and paid for. So you generally have to turn to The Guardian, which is a deeply flawed organ, but is not in the pocket of a foreign-based billionaire like most of the rest of the media now. Or historically the BBC, but they, as we've discussed on many occasions, fell into the trap of false equivalence. So you'd have it was actually a precursor to Brexit, when you would have 99% of academic expertise in one corner, but if you were doing an interview on Newsnight, you'd have to invite the late Nigel Lawson onto the show to sit in the other corner, insisting that climate change wasn't real. And we're still, in many ways, caught in that trap. Drill, baby, drill is an extraordinary thing to have political popularity at the moment when you consider the state of the planet. Do you remember ULEZ? Do you remember how hysterical, it's not a word I use very often, how hysterical the people who brought you Brexit and Boris Johnson and told you Trump was going to be brilliant and used phrases like Trump derangement syndrome. Do you remember how mad they all went about ULEZ? I mean, partly because the Mayor of London has brown skin and is a Muslim, of course. That inspires an awful lot of our political discourse in the capital city, sadly, especially online. But it went beyond racism and Islamophobia, the absolute hysteria that surrounded ULEZ, up to and including a former leader of the Conservative Party endorsing criminal damage and subsequently backpedalling furiously. I speak of Ian Duncan Donuts. ULEZ. You remember ULEZ? And then, boom, it went. An entire by-election was fought on that single issue. Keir Starmer, remember him? He joined in with the criticism of Sadiq Khan after they lost in Uxbridge, saying that, maybe we need to rethink it, or maybe... And Sadiq Khan, to his credit, was resolute. He knew how this was going to pan out, even if nobody else did. And by the way, this is how it's panned out. Deaths linked to air pollution fell by an estimated 40% in London over 5 years from 2019, according to new analysis by Imperial College London. It also found that toxic air pollution in London reduced markedly, with nitrogen dioxide levels down 41% and fine particulate pollution down 28%. At which point... someone will ring in to say, oh, yes, but the air on the London Underground is very dusty. And you sort of recognise, yeah, we are the baddies. Because no one's done that for themselves. No one's gone down onto the London Underground and measured how dusty the air is. A so-called journalist has done that in the hope of poo-pooing or undermining an initiative, an environmental initiative that has, in just 7 years... seen air pollution fall by an estimated 40%. That follows, by the way, news about the number of hospital admissions with breathing difficulties plummeting as well. That's such a big win, politically. Such a big win. But we don't care enough. We don't care enough. So, what would it take? Is it just that it will take more extreme heat? What would that actually look like? Is it that there needs to be some sort of fundamental shift in the way that we think about things? What would that involve? Can you think of a precedent? Is there anything that we have undergone because I don't think everyone always talks about the smoking ban. But look what happened. Just walk down your high street and count the vape shops. I know that we've got rid of smoking and that vapes aren't as bad as cigarettes, but it doesn't actually feel like an undiluted victory, does it, over addiction or poison? I don't know that there is a precedent for what needs to be done. But I know that it needs to happen. And I know that I'm part of the problem. I can turn something that the rest of the media thinks is dry or the rest of the media is lying to you about. I can turn it into compelling radio. I'm not bigging myself up. I can. I can't do this. I've tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. I can't do it. I don't know what needs to happen for me to be terrorised. Because I'm not. There's a map of France, a heat map of France, that was published a few years ago as a warning of what things would look like by 2050 if action wasn't taken. I was looking at it yesterday. It's already worse than the projection. In France today, it's already worse than the projection that was published as a scare tactic a few years ago for what it would look like in 2050. It's already worse today. Everything is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. We happen to live in a country that can't cope with that, but even countries that were constructed to cope with extreme heat can't cope with the levels of extreme heat or the extremity of the heat that they're experiencing. And we don't feel it. We all want to talk about Calippos and funny feet, Fabs and rockets, Cornettos and Magnums. We don't feel it. Why don't we feel it? 0345 6060 973. Why don't we feel it? Why aren't we
Contact Holiday Park Advice Centre, because if you were missold, we can help. Text ASSIST to 78900. Fees apply.
At Waitrose, you know you're a food lover when 4 for 3 on wine and fizz has you pairing a wine with every single delicious picky bit. Even the crisps. Make it a summer to remember with 4 for 3 on wine and fizz, like citrusy Chapel Down Brut, aromatic oyster-based Sauvignon Blanc, and fruity Margariot Bordeaux. Available now at Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Excludes bottles priced £6 or under, £100 or over, and boxed wines. Subject to availability. Please drink responsibly.
Before you renew your private health insurance, are you sure you're getting the right cover at the right price? At the Private Healthcare Company, we compare a range of leading providers to find cover matched to your needs, with a dedicated representative who will support you from start to finish. Search the Private Healthcare Company today and see how much you could save on your renewal. The Private Healthcare Company. your personal private healthcare broker.
You know, people ask me, what's my good place? It's in the garden, playing football with my girls. It's also knowing that because my pension is with Pension Bee, I get a beekeeper, a UK-based account manager for support should I need it.
You're not very good, Daddy.
At Pension Bee, we believe that when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. Download the app or go to pensionbee.com and be pension confident. When investing, your capital is at risk.
Fancy being spoilt for choice when it comes to your new kitchen? Wickes has over 80 kitchen styles and hundreds of cabinet options, so there's something for every home. Plus, choose from a wide range of leading appliance brands and beautiful worktops. Book your free kitchen design appointment at Wickes.
This is LBC. Message James O'Brien on WhatsApp now on 0345 6060 973.
10:51 is the time. What will it take? Suzanne was in Innsbruck in Austria. Suzanne, what made you pick up the phone?
Hi, James. I actually live quite close to Innsbruck, within a ski resort, and the film Don't Look Up, film Don't Look Up kind of springs to mind. I mean, we've got 2 ski areas on glaciers, and we're literally watching the glaciers melt year to year. They're receding at such an incredible rate. The mountains, literally parts of mountains falling down. It sounds dramatic, but I mean the rock falls are horrendous. Buildings are having to be rebuilt because the permafrost isn't holding them anymore. Snow has to be artificially made in winter because there's not enough. I mean, as I say, on the glacier there is, but lower down. And people still, you wouldn't believe, people still don't accept it.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. Is the conversation pretty much identical to how it is in the UK and America?
I mean, pretty much. People are saying, oh, this happened before. We had winters without snow going back to, the 20s, 30s. Yeah. Well, they did have winters without snow, but not because it was warm and raining, but because it was just a dry atmosphere and it didn't, there was no snowfall, no rainfall, whatever. I mean, the temperatures, it's so obvious. And I think really the only thing that will make people wake up and see what's happening here is if literally the ski seasons end. There isn't any skiing anymore because people were completely reliant on tourism. I mean, obviously, I think that doesn't happen running a bed and breakfast, but, I mean, it's the only thing I think that will really make people wake up and accept that there's something happening. Everything else they find excuses for, and it's just, it's like any conspiracy theory, really.
Even if, because I'm fascinated by a bloke called Don Perlman, who was essentially the inventor of climate change skepticism and worked for a law firm in Washington, D.C., and then was stuck on retainers by all manner of United Nations members who were desperate to keep the oil flowing for obvious reasons. And I wonder what a world without him. Someone else would have stepped up and filled that role. I don't know if we can separate the propaganda from the people, because the lady in Solihull was brilliant at sort of bleak but brilliant at just blaming it on human nature, really. And I blame it on the media because I have this naive belief that we would all be alive to the emergency if we weren't constantly being fed propaganda. But I wonder whether we would. I wonder if it is actually a question of looking at a glacier melting and just reassuring yourself that everything is fine. You don't need the liar in your ear telling you that everything's fine.
I think it's a bit of both. There are, like I say, there are records that say, there was warmer temperatures, colder, whatever, but people don't want to see the big picture. They are, the businesses, the big businesses that run the lift companies, things like that, they are doing an awful lot.
What do you mean?
Literally put up, they've put on the glaciers, they've actually got, solar, photovoltaics, they've got solar panels, they're running a lot of the lifts on solar. They do a tremendous lot. They've got a whole environment, can't think of the word in English, sorry. They've got a whole program to make things more sustainable.
Because they're facing existential threat, but only on an industrial level. So the industry is facing existential threat. That's it, isn't it? This is the great riddle of our age. What would it take? An existential threat is clearly the answer, but we are already facing existential threat, whether it's industry by industry or territory by territory, and it's still not enough. Thank you, Suzanne. Crikey. Everywhere. And of course, I'm unlikely to take calls from people who could explain the Chinese approach to these matters to us, albeit that our reach is far and wide. I don't know whether or not I would be justified in suggesting that there is a kind of cultural difference in the way that we look at the world, the way we look at humanity. Because if you're planning hundreds of years ahead, then you are going to be building more wind farms and more sustainable energy plants than anywhere else in the world. And spoiler alert, the Chinese are, even as they continue to use fossil fuels, because they know which way we're going. And they'll be ready and we won't. Karen's in Gwinear in Cornwall. Karen, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
It's a pleasure. Just basically to say, I think the only time people will take notice is when it literally bites them on the bum.
Well, not literally, Karen.
Well, well, we can have a go. But I think until people see on their tables, in their homes, in their work life, in their personal life, how climate change will affect them, for a start, how do we grow our food?
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky in this country. We have a good, strong agricultural industry. But
well, it's not what it was, but yeah, we do grow some of our food.
Yeah, I think basically if people see that suddenly they're going to the supermarkets and the shops and the shelves are empty again, just imagine what we went through in COVID. Add to that a very high level of, weather